Okay, so this is my first video in which I'm actually trying to engage with the book because I want to try to explain one of the things that I think is at the heart of where I subtly disagree with some of the points that he's making. Um, which is this is his chapter one, which is an introduction to Kantian ethics. And it is about the nature of duty. And I think there's actually some really interesting stuff in this chapter. But in this video, I'm not going to engage with any of the things in it that I think are actually like good and valuable. I want to essentially chip away at a bunch of the foundations because I think like there are some important bits in there where like I really disagree with Velleman, and um, I want to sort of like unpick some of the disagreements. Um, so he's talking about this idea of duty as a practical requirement as a starter. And what he's trying to get at is the idea of essentially what are our moral duties, which for him means inescapable requirements, things that you cannot get away with, get away from. Um, and this requires a couple of things to unpick, both to start with. First off, he's talking about practical requirements, which are things that you have to do or not do. And he doesn't explicitly spell this out, but I very much get the sense throughout it that his notion of practical requirement is something articulable. It's something that you can explicitly list out as a thing that, like an if-then statement, so he's got some examples here. So if you want to read Kant in the original, you have to learn German. There's a practical requirement. Federal law requires you to make yourself available on a jury. There's another practical requirement. And that's all very well and good. These are nice examples of practical requirements, but not all practical requirements work like that. And I think like to a very large degree, most practical requirements don't work exactly like that. My sort of go-to example of practicality is building a bridge. If you want to build a bridge, there are a whole bunch of practical requirements that boil down to like physics, engineering, materials, um, but also how to work with people, how to think about building bridges. And many of these are not hard requirements. Like your only hard practical requirement is that the bridge should work. The bridge shouldn't fall down. The bridge should be able to travel. People and vehicles should be able to travel over the bridge. You should be able to use the bridge as a bridge. But sort of implicit in this is like this entire like large cloud of practical requirements radiating out from this. None, like some of which you can um, spell out. Like if you want your bridge not to fall down, you shouldn't make it out of cotton candy. Um, some of which are like mostly true. Like if you want your bridge to fall down, you should, to not fall down, you should support it adequately from underneath, but you could do a suspension bridge. I don't know. I'm not actually very like I'm not a bridge engineer, but the point is that the practical requirements leading up to building a bridge are not a set of simple articulable requirements. Like they are an entire like mess of implications and constraints and heuristics that boil down to like expert skill, the actual physical laws of the world. I'm sorry, I'm belaboring this a bit, but it's important for getting to a disagreement that I have with him later, which is we are going to skip all of this, for now. I have lots of disagreements with him about the nature of authority, which I want to get back to. But what I want to get to is his argument about acting for reasons, which is this bit. And part of why I want to get to know, and part of why I want to talk about this is because his notion of reasons very much, again, doesn't explicitly say that it should be articulable, but the fact that a reason is implicitly being treated as an answer to a why question sort of suggests that it is. And in the bridge example, like there will be many inarticulable things that come up here. And sometimes the answer will be because we've always done this way, that way, and that is a reason in the sense being provided, but like the actual reason is that this is a implicitly evolved and developed system where people have learned skills making bridges that don't fall down. And the reason that you should do something is not necessarily the reason that you do something. And in particular, like you are not necessarily doing that thing for that reason. Here's the objection I think that I'm trying to get at here, which is that Velleman's account here, and I think Kant's account, very much assumes that reasons are prior to action, so his point is that if you ask why should I act for reasons, and your answer is a reason, then he is backing up. I tend to adopt a view of reasons which comes from the book The Enigma of Reason, in which a reason is a description, not an actual. It's not an like the reason is not part of the underlying architecture. The reason is providing some sort of description. So suppose someone throws a baseball at me and I duck. Why did I duck? My reason I ducked is that I didn't want to get hit by the baseball. And in the sense of a reason as an account of the behavior, that is a perfectly good reason. But the underlying architecture doesn't have some bit inside in my head in which I'm like, oh, there's a baseball coming. What is a good strategy for avoiding the baseball? What happened is that something was flying at me, so I ducked. And reasons as descriptions don't suffer from this circularity that Velleman is pointing at. They don't, because if you ask me why I should act according to reasons, then if a reason is descriptive, not prescriptive, then there's nothing circular about this. I can describe the consequences of acting according to reasons. I can describe the way that reasons influence behavior. And this is to the degree that the purpose of a reason is a description, not a prescription. And this is a perfectly reasonable thing to do. It's not because the reasons exist independently of whether you act according to them. They exist as a way of communicating something about your experience and your actions to other people. And so when you are providing a reason to act for reasons, you are providing a description of the way that reasons have influenced your prior actions, not a normative justification of why the of why reasons should be binding. And this, I think, entirely removes the circularity and takes a significant amount of the force of the argument about acting for reasons out and away. And that's all I have to say about this for now. These are my thoughts on reasons for action being or not being compelling. More in whatever video I do next.